Good evening, everyone. I am so excited that you're here this evening. We're going to give everyone a second to chime in here, log on. I can't imagine a better way to spend a Thursday than talking with a bunch of romance authors. That is my idea of a perfect Thursday. So I'm very excited for everyone to join us this evening. I am Stephanie, if you're not familiar with who I am. I'm Stephanie. I'm a bookseller and director of operations at The Novel Neighbor, which is an independent bookstore located in Webster Groves, Missouri. You could also say it's located in St. Louis, Missouri. Webster Groves is a little specific. But we are so thrilled to be hosting this amazing event. We've been looking forward to this because one thing that we love is we love lots of books. But we have a special place in our heart for romance books. And that is what we're going to be doing this evening. So before I bring on our incredible authors, I am going to introduce them to you. So our first author is Christina Hovland. Christina lives her own version of a fairy tale, an artisan chocolatier by day and romance writer by night. Born in Colorado, Christina received a degree in journalism from Colorado State University. Before opening her chocolate company, Christina's career spanned from the television newsroom to managing an award-winning public relations firm. She's a recovering overachiever, who else can relate to that, and perfectionist with a love of cupcakes and dinners she doesn't have to cook herself. A 2017 Golden Heart finalist, she lives in Colorado with her first boyfriend turned husband, 4 children, and the sweetest dogs around. Our next author is Constance Gillam. Constance is an award-winning author. She writes suspense, crime, women's fiction, contemporary romance, and young adult. So lots for us to dive in there. It's hard for her to choose one genre to write, obviously. If a story grabs her imagination, she writes it. A former scientist, Constance traded in her lab coat to write fiction, a longtime dream. She lives in Atlanta with a husband who doesn't mind taking up the household slack so she can create stories about crime, intrigue, and love. She loves writing about diverse characters and cultures. To find out more about her writing, check her out at www.constancegillam.com. Ribin Bielman is USA Today best-selling author who lives in Southern California with her awesome family and her very cute dog. I love the amount of times that dogs is already coming up in this conversation. We don't even have the authors on yet. Very cute dog, Harry. I almost didn't say Harry's name. How rude would that have been? She writes both sweet and sexy contemporary romances with one goal in mind, to leave you with a smile on your face. When not attached to her laptop, she loves to read, go to the beach, and frequent coffee shops. She loves to stay in touch. Visit her at robinbielman.com or on Instagram at robin_Bielman. And finally, Elle Cruz, who is our most recent author to have a book birthday among the bunch. Elle writes heartfelt, steamy contemporary romance. It all started when she got her hands on a historical romance novel at the tender age of 13, and there was no turning back. By day, Elle works in the healthcare industry, but at night she's writing swoon-worthy stories that are passionate and fun, all rolled into one. She is married to a sexy city official and is the mother of 2 gritty goofballs. She lives in Southern California. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming all our incredible authors on screen. Hello, everyone, and good evening.
Hi there. Hey.
Hi.
How is everyone doing this evening? I know we were having some good backstage conversation, but how is everyone doing? How are your Thursdays going?
That's so funny. No, I'm sorry. It just is. Like, this day has been a day. It's been the Monday is Thursday in the history of Thursdays. I feel like it's okay. Like, everybody lived.
Yeah. I hate that for you. That sounds very tiring.
It was a little stressful.
Has anyone else had a Monday that's a Thursday?
My day was okay. We had an ugly sweater, contest at the day job today. So that was fun to see everybody dressed up for the holidays. And yeah.
I love it. Did you win?
Well, my grandson comes to me after school for after school care. And when his mother picked him up, he couldn't find his socks. He takes his shoes and socks off, and he claims the dog ate it. But we found them. He's a character. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Elle, what about you?
Oh, well, I agree with Christina. I had a Monday-ish type Thursday. It's always the day job. I always blame the day job. I'd much rather be writing, but can't do that. So
Well, at least you're not alone, Christina.
I know, right? Like at the end of the day, one of my very good friends called and she's like, it was like 4:00 and it was like, I have 4 kids and like 2 dogs and there's a lot of chaos, like just a chaos bomb usually erupts. And she's like, hey, like the groomer needs to leave early. Can you go pick up my dog for me? I was like, what the heck? Like, we'll just add another dog to the mix. Like, so his name is Waffles, and we were his foster home when he was first rescued. And so he knows our home. And so it was super sweet to have him here. But he was, yeah, it's just like, what's one more? Just bring all the kids over too.
Waffles.
Well, I hope that tonight's event is a like bright spot in all of these, especially for the two of you who had like Mondayest of Thursdays.
I know.
Have any of you met before? Connie and Christina, y'all have done an event before, true?
Well, actually, we all have done. Well, I know that Robin and Christina and I have done. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so I have met everybody. But everybody hasn't met everybody. So Robin and Elle and I did a show together, a live show together. And then Christina and I have done a show together. So I guess I'm the only one that knows everybody. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And you guys are all great. So I just love being with you. So it's going to be
right back at you.
We feel the same way.
Yes. Well, congratulations to all of you. Like I kind of said at the beginning, Elle, you're the most recent one to have a book birthday with How to Survive a Modern Day Fairy Tale. But y'all have had like some busy October and Novembers with some new books coming out. So I think it would be most appropriate for us to kind of round robin it, maybe starting with Elle, and then I'll kind of, whoever wants to pick up after that, but maybe like Elle, Robin, Connie, Christina, however we want to do it, with just telling us about your most recent released book, because you all have so much good stuff that's out there. But so Elle, do you want to kick us off with telling everyone, if they're not familiar with How to Survive a Modern Day Fairy Tale, like what it is?
Oh, sure, no problem. So How to Survive a Modern Day Fairy Tale is my first and only book, so I'm really excited about that. It was a great accomplishment for me that I thought would never happen. But it's a contemporary romance. It's the story of a quirky bookseller and the hot, nerdy billionaire who sweeps her off her feet. It's so outrageous. He takes her on a first date to Paris. And essentially, it's the story of this girl trying to find herself and discover what's really important and try to realize her dreams. And also kind of try to meet her family's expectations while she's caught up in this whirlwind romance. So it's like a kind of an over-the-top story, and it's perfect for hopeless romantics and people who like a little spice in their stories.
And we will circle back to the spice. Just I'll note that. We're all going to have a great conversation about the spice a little bit later. Robin, what about you?
My most recent release is The Wedding Crasher and the Cowboy. And it's about an ER doctor who crashes one of her good friend's wedding. He actually also happens to be her ex. So she snags her best friend. She crashes this destination wedding that takes place on a ranch. And it turns out that the ranch is owned by her college nemesis. And he's the first person she runs into. So it's there's a lot of wedding shenanigans. It's enemies to lovers. Yeah, and it was just really fun to write.
And fun to read. Connie?
The Hookup Dilemma. I've had a copy here. It's actually pretty much what it sounds like. These two meet in a bar, instant attraction. They go to bed together. And then they part, only knowing their first names. And then they find out that they are on opposite sides of a legal battle. So they spend most of the book trying to resist the attraction that they have for each other, and also be, to give their support to their families, because their families are on opposite sides of this battle. Very spicy, very spicy. So anyway. No motorcycles, but
Next time.
The people want a motorcycle scene, Connie.
Give the people what they want. That's my motto.
Christina?
My latest release is called April May Fall, and it's a women's fiction rom-com. I call it a mom-com because it's in the Mommy Wars series. It's all about moms who are figuring out life with kids and love and the things that we deal with every day, with children and with husbands and ex-husbands and, new loves or new options, new ideas, and then friend groups that really come together around us and help lift us up through the hard times. And there's a lot of humor because motherhood is very funny if you look at it that way. Sometimes it can feel very serious like today, but in all honesty, like if you look at it from the other side, it's pretty funny. So yeah, that's what April May Fall is. April is a mom influencer, a mommy influencer she's known as the calm mom, and she has a moment go viral when she's not entirely calm, and then Jack the fixer has to come help figure out how to save the brand.
Oh my gosh. This is
That would make a great TV show.
Right?
Yes. It would.
That's such a good point, Robin.
I'm picturing it already. I'm like, God, that would make such a good show. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Jack has to come in and he's like this press suits guy, and he has to like suddenly help her with the kids because of what she needs is help like with being a mom so she can focus on her brand. And so he helps play Mr. Mom, which is kind of funny. I think it's hysterical.
I love everything about what everyone just said. And there's so many different directions. I cannot wait to take this conversation. Elle, I do want to come back to you because, yes, it's so important to celebrate that it is your first book. And you said that you've been, kind of in this space and thinking about this since you picked up your first romance at 13. But how did you decide? And I'll ask everyone else kind of a similar question, but how did you decide what was going to be your first book? And like, how did you decide on this story? How did we get there?
Ooh, it's a long story, but I'll try to give you kind of like the shortened version of it. I've just been trying to make serious efforts towards writing for the past 5 or 6 years. So I guess I'm one of the lucky ones because 5 or 6 years is actually a long time, but not as long as others. So I actually started writing young adult, and it was science fiction fantasy, believe it or not. That's what I started in. Got a lot of rejections, which was really painful, but I didn't want to give up, and I got a lot of good advice. One of the things that someone told me, what I was told was to learn how to pivot, because if you kind of put all your eggs into one basket, sometimes it doesn't work out for you. So I started really thinking about that. And one day I just thought to myself, why don't I write romance? Because I love reading it. I just never thought I could write it because of the nature of how to write romance. I think it's in the beginning, I thought it was a very difficult, impossible thing to do because it takes a great deal of skill. And it was something I was lazy to develop. I just didn't think I could do it. But then one day I just said, hey, why are you telling yourself that you can't do it? Try it, because all you do is read romance. So just try it. So I did. And I started writing contemporary romance first because I just felt like it was a little bit, I don't like to say the word easier, but the world building was not as daunting as it normally was for me with the science fiction fantasy. It's something I was a little more familiar with. So I started that way. And I came up with a few concepts. And then that's when I approached Entangled, and they loved my idea. So that's how it came about. So it was a long time coming. It's funny because, all of my manuscripts for YA got rejected. I got years of rejections, and then the first romance out of the gate was the one that got published. So it's just funny how life works sometimes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad that you got that yes for this. because I think we all love and adore it, as does the world. Does anything that Elle said like ring true for anyone else, or hit kind of, did it make anyone else think of anything? I know, Connie, you're like this wild case going on my screen. You're at the bottom. I don't know if that's true for everyone. But I was like, you're the wild case going on there. Like, you're like, you write across all kinds of genres. So we have to like circle back to how you managed to do all of that. But yeah, is that similar to anyone else's story of getting into romance or experience with romance publishing?
My story is a little bit like Elle's. I write mystery and suspense, and the Hookup Dilemma is not my first book. I have 4 or 5 self-published books that are suspense, mystery, and I wanted to try my hand at something different. And so I had written a few pages of a contemporary romance that I liked, and my critique partner said, "Hey, Entangled Publishing has this contest going on, and why don't you want to enter it?" And I thought, all I've got are like about 10 pages of this this contemporary romance, and I sent it in, and they liked it. And so it's my first traditionally published book, but it's my first contemporary romance. So that had a steep learning curve. Writing romance is not easy. I love to read it, but it is not easy to write. So anyway, so basically my first traditionally published book is a contemporary. And so that, in a sense, that's similar to Elle's.
Yeah. I definitely want to circle back to something that you just said. I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation about what's happening in the romance genre. But Robin and Christina, I want to talk to the two of you of like any similar experience, or like Christina, how did Mommy Wars come up as a concept? Because they're all standalones, which I think is important for people to know. You don't have to read them in any certain order, but they are kind of related in this Mommy Wars concept. How did that come about in your mind? How did that idea come out?
So I guess, well, with the Mommy Wars, so I've written contemporary romance. My first book was with Entangled. It's called The Honeymoon Trap. And it's the first book I wrote to see if I could write a book. So that was an interesting time. Like, I didn't think people just wrote books. Like, I felt like it was kind of like going to Hollywood and trying to be an actress. Like, you didn't, like, why waste your time? And I had a friend that passed away very, very young. And I was in grief therapy about it. And the therapist said, but people go to Hollywood and they make it big. And I was like, that was kind of like a light moment for me. She's like, so what if you actually wrote the book? And like, what if you tried? And so I did. I took like 7 months off of work, and like really, like, it was like my project. And so that's how I kind of slid into like writing books. And then I just kind of fell in love with it. Like, it really is something I love. And so there was this day where I had this thought of like, wouldn't it be fun to write stories about moms? Like, you watch Bad Moms Christmas or Bad Moms, and you're like, you laugh so hard because it's so true, like the things that happen. And so I called my agent, and she's fantastic. And I said, Emily, and she said, hey, what's up? And I said, I want to write mom-com. And there was like this insanely long pause before she goes, why don't you tell me what that looks like? And so I explained it, and then she started to get really excited about it too, because I was like, no, so this would be like moms, but it's not just the moms. Like, it's about like the kids and the things that they do, and like we're all chaos coordinators throughout the day, and how do we like balance it all, and like, and then maybe we throw in a hunky guy, to round things out. And so that's where the concept came from. And from there, April, May, Fall, actually, I had a concept that I wanted to do with Jack and April. And then when I took it to Entangled as a proposal, they had some ideas that made it better. So we just tweaked it. And then I wrote the book. And then we knew what April, May, Fall was going to be before we knew Rachel Out of Office, and There's Something About Molly. So I actually wrote the books all out of order, which I don't recommend as a general, like, because there were times where I literally like had to say, I don't know what's going to happen with this character. Like, where's she at in her life in the other books? And so I had to like really like do a timeline for all the books, including Emmeline's book, which is coming out in June, because there will be the 4 Mommy Wars books. And to know, because I wrote them all out of order.
Oh my gosh.
I don't recommend it.
No.
I don't want to do that again.
Wow.
Okay, duly noted. No writing characters and books out of order. All right, you know what? I believe you. I believe that was not.
I don't think I could have done that. I write very linear. You know, a lot of authors will write scenes out of order. That's not me. I have to write in order. So I don't think I could do that, Christina. Kudos to you. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
It was chaos in my head is what it was. And it was a lot of notes and a lot of lists of like, okay, so this is her and these are her catchphrases and this is her and her catchphrases. And so nobody was even, because the other thing was is with characterization, you don't want it to overlap. Like you want each person to be their own individual being. And so it was just interesting. It was an interesting thing to do. I'm glad I did it. I don't want to do it again.
Sounds eerily similar to your Monday-ish Thursday.
I'm glad I did it. I just don't want to do it again.
Robin, what about you? How did your book come about?
I love writing about weddings. I'd never written an enemies to lovers story, so I really wanted to do that. And I like writing small town, so that was kind of easy. I'd never written a story on a ranch before, so we just added some new ideas into, you know, what I enjoyed writing. I'd always wanted to write a doctor as a heroine, so I did that, and I've always wanted to write a cowboy hero, so we threw him in there, and then the Wedding Crasher and the cowboy came to be. So yeah, that's really it. And a lot of like what the other authors have said, it did take me 5 years to get published too, Elle. I've always written contemporary, although I did write one paranormal romance, and I actually thought that was where my heart lied. And it was published. It was published with a small publisher that has since is no longer in business, so the book's not out there anymore. But I loved it, so it was fun dabbling into that paranormal world. And I think about maybe going back there again sometime. I don't know, but contemporary really is where my heart is at. And it's just what I like to write the best. So that's what I do.
Does anyone else here watch Yellowstone?
I'm dying to watch that. I haven't yet.
Well, I was just bringing it up because I recently took the plunge with my husband, and I know cowboys have always had a moment. Like, you know, there's people that cowboys are always their thing, but I'm really having a moment with cowboys. So I was very excited about it. But,
I like Kevin Costner a lot. I have for a long time. So yeah, need to watch that.
Is he the new, like,
he's the main guy, right? I think.
No, yes, he's the main guy. Like, okay. I thought Richard Gere was always my like guy. From, like, I don't know why. I know it's such a weird opinion to have. Like, I hear that, I hear it, but I loved him and Julia Roberts together, and I feel like, you know, Runaway Bride was in. I just remember watching all of their movies together for the first time, and I was like, I don't know, Kevin Costner. I also watched The Bodyguard for the first time during COVID, which I thought was a rom-com. So that was a really different moment for me. Where like my husband was like, "Are you just like sobbing?" And I was like, "Yes!" Like I didn't. He was like, "You know, this song came from the movie." And I was like, "I know. I guess I never realized it would be like a sad tone. I thought they ended up together." So sorry, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it.
And now we know how it ends.
I'm the worst. I'm like spoiling. I promise not to spoil the endings of these books. I swear. Well, I want to, like I keep saying, there's so many different things I'm excited to talk about, but I do think it's really important, and it's something that came up in a lot of your bios. And so whoever wants to speak to this first, but feel free, anyone, to like jump in. But a lot of people, I think it is important for people to hear that writers often are making a lot of dedicated time to write. I mean, Christina, you said you took that time off of work at one point to get that one up and going, but a lot of you have day jobs. And then I imagine, like, come home and write, or maybe in the morning. Like, what does that look like for you to carve out time to write? Because I think it's really important for people to hear how this is really, it has to be a passion area for you, because I'm sure it's not easy to make this time. Sorry, whoever wants to.
I can go. I mean, I can. For me, I worked. My husband, he worked a ton of hours for a very long time. He's a CPA, and so he spent most of his time, honestly, like traveling for work and working. He was an auditor, so he actually traveled around and worked with companies. So he was gone a lot, and so I had a marketing company that was doing well financially, but it wasn't very fulfilling. And so that's when I decided to do chocolate, because I really wanted to write a book. And what do you do when you really want to write a book? You open a chocolate company instead, because that makes so much more sense. Which at the time it seemed logical, because again, who wrote a book and actually like made a career that way? But I'm super lucky now in that my career is my author life. So I'm very, very, very lucky to be able to do the job full time. Yeah.
Well, I started off, I've been writing for a long time. And I was working when I first started writing, and I would write, I'd write at lunch, I'd write in the evening, I'd write in the morning. And when I got to a place that I was working evenings, so I was pretty much there by myself, one or two other people. And once I finished my job, I'd just get in the back where no one could come up behind me. And I'd open up windows and I would start writing. And I hoped that no one ever checked this computer, because my whole novel was on this work computer. And, and I had a little jump drive where I would load it, but, so I did what I had to do. And that was really important to me. And it was my passion. And I wanted to say that I'd published a book before they closed the casket on me. So I made the time. I hope no one from my previous job is listening, but yeah.
No one needs to know. No one needs to know.
When I first started writing, I didn't have a day job. I was home with my kids when I first started writing. And then I kind of fell into the job that I have now over many, many, many years. It started as part-time and it became full-time because it's something I really enjoy and I really love. And so it was kind of the opposite for me in a way, in that it was easier to write years ago. It is much more challenging now with the 40-hour-a-week job. My kids are older now, though, so I kind of traded the kids for the day job, I guess. But I do definitely struggle with carving out that time and having time for me and my husband. And so it's a bit harder now for sure. But I love it so much, and I can't imagine ever not writing. And the stories are always in my head, and I'm always thinking about characters. So I try to carve out some time every night and a little bit of time on the weekends. But it is hard. I do feel for people who are juggling a lot of hats and trying to get it all done. Elle's the same. I know she works a lot, and her kids are younger, and it is hard to find that balance to get everything done. I'm definitely slower at writing a book now than I was before, for sure.
Elle, bring us home. Tell us about making time.
Oh, this is bad. Okay, so with me, wow, there is practically no time to write. And thinking back on how I was able to write this book and how I was able to write 5 manuscripts blows my mind, because I'm a full-time worker. I have a very demanding job in healthcare. I work more than 40 hours a week. I have 2 kids. One's in high school and one's in the 4th grade. And they're both very involved in sports and the arts and the dance. So being a sports mom, you can imagine picking up kids, dropping them off, attending games, attending performances. I have a husband who loves adventures. He loves to travel, loves to go out to eat, loves to go places. So we're having adventures ourselves. And then there's the writing. I'm now a professional writer, which blows my mind to think about. So I have certain obligations. I've got to market myself now. I have to think about the next book, and so on and so forth. So when it comes finding time to write, for me in particular, I don't have the luxury of just like really carving out time. I hijack time. So whenever I find a moment where like there's downtime, like during my lunch break, or my kids are at school, or well, even then when my kids are at school, I'm working. So, I just hijack time whenever I can. I think if you're asking about a routine for me in particular, I have to write at night. I used to wake up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning to do that, but it just wasn't working out. I was not able to sustain that. So at night I write. So after I'm done with work, I'm done with the kids are asleep at around 10:30, I start writing. And I set a goal for myself. I try to get between 500 to 1,000 words if I can. Sometimes I get none, but I don't, I'm not hard on myself for that. I just do the best that I can with this demanding life that I have. And especially because writing brings me so much joy. For me, it's not just something to, pay the bills and stuff, although that is the dream. I would love to be a full-time writer. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to do that. But the fact that I don't rely on it, as my full income, I think it kind of is a little bit easier for me to handle. So I don't get burned out, I guess. And it just brings me a lot of joy whenever I get a chance to write. It's stressful to try to find the time, but when I do, I sit down and I really enjoy it. And it's because for me, it's a privilege to be able to write because I don't have very much time. So when I do, I really enjoy it. It's like, I don't need to drink. I don't need like any other escape. Just being able to write just fills my well, and it makes me happy. So I just hijack little bits of time here and there. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no schedule. I just try to get time when I can. As a matter of fact, I just realized that I have to have 4 different schedules. So I write one schedule of all the stuff I have to do for work, one schedule that I have to do as a mother, one schedule that I have to do as a volunteer for school and arts, and then the other schedule that I write as a writer. So I have 4 different lives that I have to attend to. Very stressful, but it's doable. I was able to write a book. It's where is it? Right here. So it's a testament that you can do it if you work hard and you're persistent and you have enough support. So
yeah, you're also inspirational of making this. I'm sure there's people who are aspiring writers who are going to hear all this, and also just hearing the rejections earlier too. I think that's really important for people to hear, because all you see are people's successes, right? But you don't know always like how much time you all have spent working with publishers or self-publishing your own books and getting to this point. So thank you all so much for sharing all of that. I want to talk about romance as a genre. It's having a real moment right now. I don't know if you noticed, but I think we're seeing a lot of like year-end wrap-ups too that are showing how much romance is really, people are seeking out romance. Sales are up. I think there's an interesting conversation happening with how social media is helping also move some self-published romance authors over into the published space because romance. Well, I guess here's what I'm trying to come back to. Romance is having a moment. And Connie, you said something earlier that I wrote down, because you said writing romance is not easy. And there's definitely sometimes this thing of like, I feel like romance as a genre or romance fiction as a genre, like complicated feelings about how we label stuff, right? And like what that means and like what counts as women's fiction and all this other stuff. What are you excited about that's happening in the romance genre right now? What is like the thing that you're looking forward to the most or appreciating the most, like in this moment, especially as authors who recently have been releasing books into it? What do you think of what's going on with this? And why do you think everyone's seeking out romance? It's having such a moment. Oh my gosh, I did not realize. That scared me. I'm so sorry. I did not realize someone put one of the store phones in here, and I'm going to throw that out while you.
She's going to just go pitch it.
I have that luxury. I do. We have 2 phones. So that is not for me to answer. Sorry. So back to the question. What are you excited about this happening in the romance genre right now with all this excitement and buzz that's around it?
I'll go. I feel like in the world we live in presently, there's a lot that is not pleasant, just in general, more so than maybe 5 years ago. And because of that, and I don't know that it's actually worse than 5 years. Oh yeah, it's worse. We've got a pandemic going on. It's worse. We can all admit it's worse. But so what about a genre that you're guaranteed a happily ever after? I mean, it's kind of like, you know, when you're really down and you go watch I Love Lucy reruns, or, you know, you go watch the comfort TV, or you read the comfort books. I feel like that's one of the reasons we're having this moment, is because we're the only genre where you're guaranteed at the end you're going to have a happily ever after. And you know, for me, like the difference for me, and I know it changes for each author, for like my romance novels, my contemporary romance books, those have a hero and a heroine that both kind of, it's about the relationship between them, and it's about them finding each other within that relationship. And the women's fiction is about her finding herself with the assistance of, you know, the hero. But he's not the one who comes in and saves her. She saves herself, you know, but just a little assistance is sometimes helpful, or the friend group assistance. But, you know, at the end, everything's going to be okay. And I think that maybe that's, to me, that's one of the reasons I love the romance genre. And I think that's why so many others have started to kind of see it as more than maybe what they thought of it before, because there's a romance novel for everybody. I mean, literally, like, if you want to know, it's been written, you know, I mean, you can go find whatever genre you want within the romance, you know, within the romance bundle. And there's, it's always going to end okay.
Oh, I agree. I've always thought and heard that romance has always been the biggest seller out there. But I just got some information, an email from this guy. His name is Alex. I can't remember his last name, who makes a living just, you know, keeping up with statistics on what's selling, what the trend is in books. And he was talking today about how big romance and romantic suspense have blown up. And I guess all I can say is I can, you know, piggyback off of what Christina said, that we need a lot of hope right now. You know, you think you're recovering from the pandemic, and then there's a new variant, you know, you've got Russia doing whatever they're about to do. You know, there's just so much going on, and people need an escape. You know, life now is so different than 2 years ago. You know, we have a new normal. We have people who are, you know, struggling to keep their business together because there are individuals who want to work from home, and some companies who think, okay, that'll work for us. You can work from home. It's just, everything is different. It's just topsy-turvy. But you can go to a romance novel and you know that that's going to have a happy ending. You know, you don't know how they're going to have that happy ending, and you're along for the ride, because, you know, if that author can make you think, oh, are they going to make it? Are they going to make it? No. Yes. Are they going to make it? Yeah. You know, then, you know, you spend your money because you want something that's guaranteed. And right now, there's really not a whole lot that's guaranteed. I don't want to be a downer, but there's just so much going on in life right now. And you know that you're going to find that happy ending, and that cute guy or cute girl, if that's your thing, you know, in that romance novel. So,
and you know, Connie, the funny thing with that is I always used to, before I knew like that romance had happily ever afters, like that was a guarantee, I would actually always read the last chapter first just to be sure that they ended up okay. Like it was just because I just needed to know that everything was going to be okay. And even now when I'm writing, like sometimes I will write the last chapter just so that I know everything's going to be okay. Like we will get them to that point. But that's one of the things I was thinking about when you say that was, I didn't know that you would always get a happily ever after. So now I want people to know, you know, if you pick up a romance novel, it's a happily ever after.
Guaranteed.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I could say it any better than what I just said. Go ahead, Elle.
Yeah. Oh, well, I agree with what has been said, 100%. I had heard in a writers' conference one time that the thing with romance is that when people seek it out, it's because they're looking for that feeling that romance can give them, romance alone. And it's the feeling that you know everything is going to be okay. The writer can put their characters through hell and just tear you apart. And then, but you know that in the end, someone's going to come back and stitch your heart back up and then give you a hug and say, look, everything turned out okay. And sometimes it's not realistic. And sometimes, you know, it's a little over the top. And some people are like, oh my gosh, I don't believe that. But for a lot of people who love romance, that's what they're looking for. They just want that comforting feeling. And it's just like, I don't know, like it's a shot of dopamine. You read it and you just feel so good and so energized, and it cheers you up basically. And like they've said that all these different genres are something for everybody. So there's the funny, if you want something funny, something that's going to tear you up and put you back together again, something that seems tragic and then, you know, is all resolved at the end. There's just something for everybody, and romance is the best. I mean, I'm so glad that I fell into it. It not only is reading it fun, but writing it is so much fun too. Because as a writer, I kind of discover what my characters are going through, and it always excites me when something new and fun happens. So,
as a reader, I do feel like every time I'm like, okay, like Elle, I'm trusting you with this, because like I know that, you know, we know there's a formula to romance, which I actually realize, to your point, Christina, a lot of people do not know that. I still feel like I'm constantly like, do you know that this is actually like kind of to be considered a romance? Like you're guaranteed this happy ever after, in whatever way that looks like, but like you can kind of always like hook your hat on that, right? Even though I know that, and like no romance has ever let me down in this way, I'm always like, okay, we're going to go into this. I'm trusting you. You better take care of me at the end because you hit some low points. And I think you kind of said that, like, okay, will they or won't they? And then I'm like, I know they will. I know they will. Like, I know this is a guarantee, but why am I still struggling with this? So it's kind of funny to hear you say, oh, like that writing it is also fun. And like also this like, or Christina, you know, that you have to write that last chapter to make sure that we get to that point. That's fun to hear. Kind of flipping the table on that question a little bit, like, romance as a genre is so great. We've just talked about how wonderful it is. What are you most excited for, like, the future of romance? Or, like, what do you wish that you were seeing more of that you're not seeing? Like, what is your hope for this genre moving forward?
Kindness, honestly. I feel like we have such great writers in our cocoon with our publisher, which is fabulous. And there's such a kindness there. And I wish that for everyone, that kind of support and kindness. Because I don't know, I think right now, maybe we all are a little on edge, you know, just in general. So I think kindness for me I'd like to see that. And then I'd also like to see, I mean, I know what I like to read. So I always want to see more of that. Like, you know, I like, I'm not even going to go into all the things that I like to read. But there you go. They're all romance, but they're not like, I write rom-com, but I read dark romance. Like I read mafia romance, and that's my favorite thing to read. But to write, it always ends up funny. Like it always ends up being funny. So.
You know, I said that I also write mystery and suspense, but it has a strong romantic element that runs through it. And so what I'd like to see is respect, because I don't think that we always get it. And I'm pretty sure this person that I'm about to talk about is not on here. I think he's about 75 years old. But it's a newly found relative. And I guess he found out that I was writing and that I wrote romance. And he never said this, but I kind of had this feeling that he was thinking, So he sent me a critique on one of the books, and it was kind of a backhanded compliment, but I took it. He said, actually, this is as good as John Grisham. And I thought, okay, how do I take that? But I said, thank you very much. Though I was saying I was not going for John Grisham, but you just have, you have to take that. And I guess to me, and maybe I'm just super sensitive that he because I do romance, maybe he didn't take it as serious fiction. And to find out that, or at least in his eyes, that I can write as well as John, and he, and the fact that there was romance in it didn't seem to deter him at all. He read through the book. So I don't know. So I guess definitely respect. Yeah. Because we've got some, excuse my language, we have some damn fine writers, including the ones that I'm on this call with. But, I want people to know that. And because it's not easy writing, I was, I'm working on another book and I'm struggling with it. And I came up with a premise that was just spot on after several weeks. And I almost had tears in my eyes because I thought, oh my God, it brings everything together. So what, so it's no, it's not easy.
That's great.
Yeah.
I agree. I think kindness and respect are very, very important. And I think I'd also like to see the continuation of, more exposure, more romance becoming more mainstream and accepted. And I think it's happening not necessarily in the book world, but it will, continue hopefully. But like, for instance, The Hating Game becoming a movie, The Bridgertons, the success of that. So slowly the romance genre, I think, is breaking through in a sense, and people are realizing that there is a lot more to the romance genre than maybe what they thought a few years ago. And so I'd like to see that continue for sure. The success for all these authors who are transitioning or having their books made into even like movies, Hallmark movies and all that. I think more and more romance novels are being made into other mediums. And so I'd love to see that continue for everybody. And I think that in a sense, it gives us more exposure, right? And then hopefully people will read the book. If they're watching the movie first, then they'll go grab the book. And I think that helps all of us. I have never, when I started writing, I had no idea I would meet so many amazing people, that it's just such a kind and supportive group of writers, everybody in this genre. And it's just really exciting to be part of. And I just hope that, that there's more people will accept it more, or it will become more, it sells the most books, right? But if you ask someone that, they probably wouldn't guess that genre. So maybe pretty soon they'll be like, oh yeah, it's romance, hands down. That'd be nice to see.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. I look forward to romance evolving further, not only becoming more diverse, and giving voices that aren't typically heard, exposure out there, from the LGBTQ community, other diverse voices, neurodivergent, disabled. I'm seeing more books come out that are own voices. And that's really, really exciting to me. And it's more accepted because I know that in the past, publishers have said, very disparaging things like, oh, that doesn't sell. Nobody wants to read a story about this and that. But it's not true, because romance is better selling than ever, and from all voices, right? And we want to see more of that. So not just the diversity coming out, but also like they said, giving romance the respect that it deserves, to make it more accepted. And I think people are more understanding how valuable it is and how much more respect that it deserves. Like, for example, for me, romance is very, very sacred. My writing career is sacred, and the genre is very sacred to me. So I am very choosy with who I share that part of me with. Like, it's funny because my family is so excited. My family is just like, oh my gosh, you should tell everybody in the world that you're a romance writer, or tell everybody this and that. And for me, it's not so easy to do that. Like, for example, nobody at my day job knows that I do this. I don't tell anybody. I work for a big medical group that has a huge presence in Southern California. So if somebody knows that, is watching this and they know I work for that company, then oh well. But I don't willingly go out there and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, did you know I write romance? I don't do that because for me, because I know that romance it's not quite there yet. I'm very protective of it, and it's something that's very special to me, and that I only want to share with people who understand and respect it and love it as much as I do. So I'm always very careful with who I share that with. But now that I know that, everyone's coming out with these great stories, and like Robin was saying, it's becoming more mainstream. People are throwing a lot of money at movie adaptations and whatnot. I think that it's going to be more accepted. And I just look forward to romance, shaking off that internalized misogyny, and for it to be taken very seriously. So I'm looking forward to that.
Can I piggyback off of something Elle said? So I said I've been writing a long time. So the Golden Heart contest is a contest for unpublished writers, or was a contest for unpublished writers through Romance Writers of America. So I finaled, probably, I guess it's been like 12 years ago. And
good job. High five.
So I was really excited. I was at work, my day job, which is in a hospital. And I was the only one that was working that day, that night. And I guess they had been trying to contact me to tell me that I had finaled, and they finally got me. It was like 5:00, and I didn't have anybody to tell. And one of the pathologists happened to walk through the lab. I threw my arms around her and I told her, I said, I finaled. She probably thought, what the heck? But then I had to explain what was going on. And, so I was out there. They knew, because I was just so excited. This had been one of my dreams, that an organization had not recommended, but had recognized I had talent. And it just happened to be the pathologist walking through, and I kind of just did something that was a little crazy, but hey.
I always laughed that. So I have a series, the Mile High Match series, and they're all tongue-in-cheek titles, like Going Down on One Knee, Blow Me Away, Take It Off, The Menu, like those type of titles. And those were some of the ones that were my first books after The Honeymoon Trap. And so I had The Honeymoon Trap and then these books. And my husband would keep them in his office, like on the shelf, proudly displayed. Like he was just so proud of me for writing these books. And I just remember like, I wonder what his clients think when they come in and they see the spines. He was always so proud of me that he put him out everywhere. So,
oh, how sweet. Yeah.
I did have one of my daughters took one to school once. It was okay. We just had to explain to the teacher. It's tongue in cheek. It's not really that bad. It's not even that steamy.
At Thanksgiving, my sister, we had dinner at her place. Everybody was there. And so my book, The Hookup Dilemma, was on the coffee table. So my son, who's an adult, sat down. He said, oh, so Mom, this is your new book. Well, about 15 pages into this book is one of the steamiest love scenes. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's my son with his daughter on the other side, and they're looking over, the grandkids are looking over his shoulder, and he's flipping through the book. I thought, oh.
You're like, be careful what you find.
But, yeah.
It's so wonderful to hear you all talk about this, because definitely as booksellers, we're experiencing this sudden okay, I'm interested. Like, where do I start? What's a good, and like talking people through. And then I'm trying to make sure I don't say something that insults somebody. Well, because I've just had people before who have been like, oh, well, I want something. I'm open to that, but I want there to be depth. And I just reflect upon like what, the kind of some of the falsities that surround the genre, where I'm like, actually, like, I would tell you that pretty much every romance we carry, I could like tell you how there's a lot of depth to the characters that are into it. Like, it's not just, I guess in some ways I'm like, it's not just your mom's like mass market paperbacks that you remember, but also like that's insulting to those, where I'm like, those are very good. Like I don't know where we went astray of like how people understand what romance is, but I'm hopeful that this like past year, and past years, I need to stop saying 1 year as if it hasn't been ongoing, has really taught us of like the value of having romance and the value of having this book that can bring out this joy in us. I know we are running out of time, and so there's a question that's really important to me that we get to, because I think it's a perfect note to end on as well. And Connie, you teed us up perfectly for it, talking about STEAM. I want to talk about STEAM. How do you decide? Because also there's all kinds of, not only are there all kinds of subgenres in romance, there's all kinds of, you can have a romance that has one makeout scene and nothing else. I literally just read one that was like that. Or you can have something that we have, a lot of steamy scenes, there's all kinds of different closed door, open door. So where have you, what has your evolution as a writer been with that? Do you consistently go for the same thing? Have you changed up based off of characters? How do you decide your STEAM level and what you want in your book? And anything else you want to throw in about STEAM, if there's something that's very fun to talk about, feel free to throw in a comment there too.
Connie and I have had this conversation. Shall we have it again, Connie? Because the way it started last time was when I believe I said that when I am crafting an intimacy scene for characters, it is never the same for two characters, because while the actual mechanics are the same, it's like the way that two people come together is different, no matter, based on who they are. Like, do they laugh? Are they funny as they come together? Are they serious? Is one of them serious and the other one can't quit giggling? Like, what's their personality in their life? And then that has so much to do with then bringing them to the bedroom to me, or to the bike, or the motorcycle, or wherever else they may go. So, but I'm always thinking like, okay, so if she's a baker, then a lot of things would have to do around, food and things like that. So bringing that into the bedroom would make sense for her. Whereas for somebody who's not a baker, it wouldn't make the same sense to have, the same type of thing. And so that's, for me, I mean, I think the best advice I ever got when I was trying to figure out how and what to write was just to let the characters figure it out, because it's never going to be the same between two characters. And that's why I don't get bored writing them. I've heard of writers who get bored, like, oh, I have to write it again. But because it's always different, it's always different. So.
This current book, The Hookup Dilemma, I felt like to live up to the title and the circumstance, it had to be hot. And obviously it had to be quickly. It had to be very quick in the story. So this was hot. I could have shut the door after they went to the hotel. But, the thing is, somebody who picks up this book is expecting, they hooked up quickly, which means there's a lot of steam there. So I felt like I had to go there. And I mentioned this, I think, in another call, is that one of my readers said, okay, I need to put a caveat on this. I had it, I bought it as an audio book, and as soon as you get in the car, it starts rolling, and it's not a carpool kind of that it is very, very steamy. And so this book has a lot of steam, though. When I write mystery and suspense, it always has a love scene, but not a whole lot of love scenes. And it's character based. I mean, how do these two people come together and make love? just like Christina said, that it's not something you just stick in there. It's based on the characters and how they approach, how they approach love and how they approach this person that they're with. And it's all very different.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for me, it's important that everything is natural and organic. So I have a great deal of respect for my readers because, readers are very smart and they can tell when you throw something in just because you want to meet a quota or because you want it to be shock value or something like that. So I try not to write that way. So when it comes to the steam and the sex and the love and the intimacy, it all has to kind of flow with the plot and with the character development. So I don't force anything. It all just has to be very natural and organic. And for me, when it comes to the sex scenes and the level of steam, for me, sex is natural. And it happens, between my characters are Asian American. And you don't see very many open door books starring Asian American people because there are certain stereotypes, I guess. But, in my world, Asian American people have sex and they can get dirty and smutty. So that's what you're going to see in my book. So it's all natural, right?
I agree with everything that was said. It really does depend on the characters, how much steam there is. I don't decide really before I start writing. I'm a pantser, so my characters take me, and it's really just, as Christina alluded to, each character is different, and the scenes are steamier than others because it's who the characters are that sort of dictate the heat level for each book.
I think my favorite one to write is when you have one of the characters, whichever it is, who's very confident in that area and the other one who is not, because I think that that's so much banter can come from that of like somebody who knows what they're doing and somebody who's like wants to know but isn't quite sure how to go about it. I love that, writing that dynamic. I think that that's super fun, and that's where the motorcycle scene Connie and I were talking about was in one of my books. It was from like reality because I had a friend who was newly single and she'd said like one of her bucket list items was to have sex on a motorcycle. And I was like, you can't do that. Like, there's no way. Like, it's not possibly. It's not possible. Like, you actually cannot do that. And she was like, let me just draw you a diagram. And so she like drew a stick figure and I was like, oh, I could see that. And so it became a joke in the book because the hero has a motorcycle and he talked about hooking up on the back of his bike. And she says, it's not possible. You need a map and a diagram to figure out like where things go. And so we had to deliver and he had to teach her like, it's doable.
It's doable.
What? Which book is this? What's that?
That one's called Going Down on One Knee.
Auto buy.
Well, Elle's Thursday night, the rest of Elle's Thursday night plans for sure.
It can be done. It can be done. And so that's where it's like anything can be done. Like if you just have to figure it out.
I do, yes. I mean, also just put that in the column for romance. It can teach you something. Like that can go in the reason it deserves. Yes, educational materials. Robin, did you want to say anything on that? Sorry.
No, that was going down on one knee. I got it. It's happening. One clicking. Like.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's some good ones out on I wish I could come up with them off the top of my head too, of like my TikTok is getting hit pretty hard with some holiday romances, and there's some definitely, I think I saw something that was a punny use of cookies and something else, but I forget what, or wrapping was one. There's some good December reads that are circulating right now that I'm excited to check out. So we ran a little bit over, so I'm sorry, everyone. Thank you for everyone watching. But most of all, thank you, of course, to our 4 amazing authors this evening. Y'all were so much fun to talk to. I feel like I am so excited. I'm always excited about romance, but I'm like extra riding that high tonight, and our store's even open late. So I'm going to go upstairs and sell some romance. People are drinking cocktails next door. Like, I'm about to go on what better time to buy romances than when you're drinking cocktails. So thank you all so much for being here. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off for the evening?
Have a happy holiday.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you all.
Thanks for having us so much.
Thank
This
you
has been
very
great.
much.
And congrats,
It
Al.
was fun.
Congrats on your
Thank
new release and
you.
your debut.
Yes,
I'm
we are
so excited.
very stacked with Elle's debut, and I have it right here. So for anyone watching who hasn't had a chance to check this one out, we've got you covered. But we've got everyone covered for all of the books we discussed tonight, online or in our store. So we have lots of options for people to buy. So awesome. Well, have a happy Thursday, everyone, and we'll see you all for our next event.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.